process.
Okay, with that, any other questions? Yes, Senator Baumgartner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's already was energy supply and cost much part of the discussion, and could you comment on that? And I'd also be curious as to what was the cost to the state that we paid Accenture for the study?
Second part of your question first, I do not know. You'll have to talk to Talo about the portion of what the state paid towards the partnership, because the contract was with the partnership, so I understand the partnership received some state funding, but what portion of that went to pay our fees, I'm not aware, so I'm sure Taylor can provide you that answer. In response to the energy question, when we looked at what we call the total landed cost of producing the airplane, so we took a step back and said, what would be the non-recurring costs of setting up a final assembly site, i.e. purchasing land, building a facility, etc., and then the recurring costs, the utilities, the wage rate, the cost of transportation, etc., for those facilities. We looked at utilities very, very closely, and what I would say is that for this airplane, utilities costs, and specifically electricity, are not as great a factor as if you were building a carbon fiber aircraft. And earlier in my comments, I mentioned that the fact that the 737 MAX is not a great technological leap from the current 737NG was a key factor in directing advantage to the existing supply chain within Washington State. If we were looking at what Boeing has called, a new small airplane, and that new small airplane was indeed a carbon fiber aircraft like the 787 that required the curing of carbon fiber barrels, which is a highly energy-intensive process. Utilities costs would have certainly been a much more significant element of the weighting of the cost analysis that we did. However, because if we're looking at an aluminum aircraft where the actual aluminum smelting, which is an energy-intensive process, isn't necessarily being done in Washington, that wasn't as large a cost component as it might have been if we were looking at a different type of technology. But what I would say in closing is, as we look into the future and how the entire supply chain across the state of Washington can support the aerospace industry, if indeed we're moving to a situation in which a carbon fiber aircraft is the formula of choice, the lower utilities costs that are available in different parts of the states could certainly be brought to bear in order to provide a lower cost profile across the supply chain in the case of that type of aircraft. I'm not sure if that answers your question, Senator, but okay.
Senator, regarding your fundraising question, that's actually a very interesting part of the story. We saw a big array of speakers here. I've been in a lot of efforts, and it's only when people put up money and put skin in the game that you know that you actually got interest. And I mentioned that because on the last page of their report, you will see a long list of funders, which include tribes, hospitals, banks, businesses of all sizes. The first folks to step up were the union members at SPIA and the machinists with $100,000 contributions, which was a very big contribution on their part. The public entities, including the state, raised roughly in the vicinity of $200,000, and the state itself contributed about 1/4 of the